When I was 16, my friend Lexi and I were trying to get super fit one summer. So we made a pact that we were going to swim around this one rock every day that summer. The swim wasn't that long, it only took like 15 minutes. But the rule was that you had to swim around the backside of the rock. You couldn't just go out and back. You had to go behind it. And the backside of the rock was always a little scary because once you got behind the rock, no one on the beach could see you anymore. So if anything happened to you, you'd be on your own. But we were ridiculously intense about it. Like we went turbo beast mode. We said that no matter the weather, no matter the size of the waves, the strength of the rip current, we would swim around the rock for the entire month of July every day. And we were super serious about this commitment. Like one day, Lexi ate a really bad pepperoni calzone and had the worst food poisoning. And she was literally shitting her pants. And I was like, Lexi, you don't have to swim with me today. And she still swam with me that day. Then one day, in the middle of July 16th actually to be exact, because I remember, we were swimming around the rock and something bad happened. So Lexi and I are swimming and we're like halfway through the swim on the backside of the rock. And while we're swimming, something hits me on the back. It literally felt like someone punched me underwater. And I scream and Lexi's like, what happened? But I was freaked out and I didn't explain it to her. So I just told her to swim to the rock, get out of the ocean and get on top of it. Once we were safe on the rock, I told Lexi what had happened and she was super freaked out. And I actually had a red mark on my back. So she knew I wasn't making any of it up. We stayed on the rock staring at the water, trying to spot anything moving for like 30 minutes. But after a while, we were like, okay, well, we have to swim back at some point. So we decided to swim in. We literally swam as fast as we could back to the shore. When we got to the shore, there was an old woman on the beach looking at us kind of weirdly. She's like, where's your other friend? And we were confused. We were like, what? She's like, you had a third girl swimming with you, didn't you? And we were like, no, it's just us. And she's like, well, I definitely saw a third girl out there with you guys. But then, a few days later, the local newspaper came out with a story titled Something in the Water. People at another beach a few miles away claimed that they were getting hit by something in the water. So people were claiming at this other beach in town that something was hitting them in the water. And they couldn't see what it was, but a few people had described the same sensation. The feeling of a really hard, blunt kind of punch in the water. So Lexi and I start to suspect that whatever's hitting people at that beach also hit me a few days earlier. And even though it was only July 19th, Lexi and I decided that it wasn't safe to swim behind the rock anymore. But I still would obviously go to the beach, and my favorite time to go was early in the mornings. And usually it would just be me at the beach at that time of day, but one morning I came down and the same old lady that thought that there had been a third girl swimming with us that one afternoon was standing there on the shore of the beach. She was just standing there with her feet in the water, but when I walked by, she turned around and she goes, "It must be a beautiful life out there. I bet they're happy." And then she bent down and picked something up from the sand and handed it to me. It was a type of shell that I had seen all the time. And she goes, "Do you know what these are? These are mermaid nails. We must have one living nearby this summer." And then she winks. A few nights later, I was at the beach again at a beach fire. And that's when I made a huge mistake. A few nights later, we were having a beach fire, and it was really fun. Everyone was drinking. It was getting pretty rowdy. I was a couple of beers deep. And then one of my friends proposes that we play Truth or Dare. So we're going around, and of course, I'm feeling tipsy and therefore bold. So when it's my turn, I choose Dare. And this guy, Eddie, who was a few years older than me, dared me to go climb up one of the big rocks, jump off into the ocean, and swim all the way in. But since hearing about this creature in the ocean, I hadn't gone in past my waist. But as I said, I was feeling drunk and brave, so I said fine. So I stripped down ass naked and I start walking towards the rock, and everyone's drunkenly cheering, but as I get further away, their cheers become quieter, and soon it's just me and the wind and the sound of the ocean. And I'm starting to get cold because even in July, the nights can get kind of chilly, and I'm standing on top of the rock about to jump in, but I'm starting to psych myself out because I'm thinking about that day that something hit me in the back. But I close my eyes and I just jump in, and the water actually feels warmer than the air, and it feels good, and I'm happy I'm in it. And I see kind of the small orange yellow light of the campfire on shore, and I start swimming towards it. But then I hear a small splash behind me, like it sounded like a small fish jumped out of the water. But I can't really see anything because the moon was just a sliver that night and everything around me was pitch black. But I start swimming faster towards shore, and all of a sudden I feel something take my hand, like grab it really aggressively. It feels like another hand holding mine trying to pull me down, and I freak out and I scream and I pull my hand away and I start swimming faster than I ever have in my whole life. And then I feel the same thing grab my ankle, and I kick and I kick and it's still holding on to it, but finally I kick really hard and I get it to let go, and I'm swimming even faster. And honestly, I kind of blacked out, but once I got to the point where I could touch, I just start sprinting through the water onto the shore. So I sprint back to the fire, and I'm trying to tell my drunk friends what had happened, but they think I'm trying to trick them and scare them, and that I made up this scary story. They're all like, haha, nice, I can't believe you actually got in the water. So later that night, I'm getting into bed and I'm thinking, did all of that actually happen, or did I just imagine it? Like, it just seemed so surreal. So in the summer, I like to wear a lot of anklets because I think they look really cute on like tan, bare feet. So I had a lot of anklets that summer, like rope braided anklets. So the next morning I'm in bed and I feel something sharp against my ankle. So I pull my foot out from under the covers and I look, and stuck in one of my anklets is a shell. And I look a little closer and it's the same shell that the old lady showed me on the beach, a mermaid's nail. When I was a freshman in high school, my family was going through a difficult financial time. We had to move to a smaller apartment in Boston so that we could afford living in the area. So we moved into this really small apartment, and the building where the apartment was in was really bizarre because it didn't even really look like an apartment building. It was technically an office building. We were on the 3rd floor, and then on the 2nd floor was a small law office. And then the weirdest one on the bottom floor, which was really the basement of the building, was a massage parlor. None of the people who worked at the massage parlor spoke English. They were all young women, and the name of the parlor was Tulips Massage. Tulips, like the flower. Love those pink tulips. But it also most definitely had a double meaning. Like, she has 2 lips. Blech. So I was 14, and I would get home at like 3 and see these sketchy middle-aged men walking into the building. Nasty, dumpy, gross, sad, sad men. One time I walked home into the building and there was this man standing at the entrance. And he gave me this weird look when I walked in, and I just ignored him and started walking up the stairs, and I could hear him walking up behind me. I thought, okay, maybe he's going to the law offices on the 2nd floor, but then he followed me up to the 3rd floor, where my apartment was. So this man followed me up the stairs, and when I got to my apartment door, I turned around and I was like, what are you doing? He was like, I thought you were leading me to my massage. And I was like, ew, no, the massage parlor's in the basement. He was like, so you don't work here? And I was like, no. And this was the creepiest part. He goes, well, that's too bad. And then he walked away. So later that day, I go for a run. And other than our sketchy apartment building, the rest of the street was really residential and nice. One of our neighbors, Peter, was gardening out front. And he said hi, and he asked how I liked living in our new place. And I said it was fine. And then I asked if he knew anything about the massage parlor. And he didn't really answer my question, but responded in a really weird way. He was like, you know, a lot of people have been living on this street for a long time, and some are friends and some aren't. And then he walked away, and I was like, whoa, did Peter just explain to me how a neighborhood works? Obviously, Peter didn't answer my question at all, and I was still really creeped out by the massage parlor. Then a few days later, I was walking home from school, and all of a sudden I hear the sound of leaves crackling behind me, like the sound of footsteps. And I turn around, and it's the same man from the apartment building.
Storytime about my shitty-ass ex-boyfriend. So a little background information. My ex and I have been dating for about 2 years. And throughout those 2 years, he was a dick. He would cheat on me, talk to other girls more than me, but of course I pretended that everything was perfect in my relationship. I would brag to all these people about how my relationship was so good, blah blah blah, and everything else. Because it's embarrassing whenever bitches can talk shit because your relationship is very toxic. Like, listen to this bullshit. The whole 2 years we were dating, I had over 10 girls DM me on Instagram saying that they screwed my boyfriend at his house. I never confronted him about it. I was just one of those girls that cared way too much about what everybody else thought. Okay, now fast forward. And it was a Friday at school, and Thanksgiving break was the following day. And him and I have this whole plan to spend the whole break together, because literally a week before that, he was on vacation in North Carolina for 2 whole weeks. Well, instead of going with him after school, I decided to go home, get an overnight bag like for part 2. Part 2 about my shitty ex-boyfriend. So like I said, the original plan was for us to go together to his house after school. But I was like, I'm going to be spending the whole week over there. I should probably pack some clothes and get a shower. So after school, he drove me to my house. And he said that his parents wanted to have dinner together, so he had to go back to his house. And he would pick me up later. So when I got to my house, I got ready and everything, blah, blah, blah. And by this time, it was like 8 o'clock. Well, I kept texting and calling him, asking him where he's at, if he's coming to get me still. Then I realized that none of my text messages were going through. So then I go to text him on Snap. And what do you know? I couldn't find him on there. And then I call him off my mom's phone. He answers the phone and hangs up right away. Well, we were supposed to have a little party at his house too, that all of my friends were going to. So I texted every single one of them. None of them answered the phone. And I remembered that my one friend had shared her location with me before. So I went and looked at her location and where was she at? My boyfriend's house. So while I sat at home crying that whole week, he was throwing parties and cheating on me with my friends. And when we went back to school, he acted like we were never in a relationship. Storytime about the boy who pretended to like me to get closer to my best friend. A little background information. It was the summer before my freshman year of high school, and my best friend and I got bored of hanging out with the same people, so we got a membership to a new pool. And this one was closer to one of our rival schools, so a lot of people that we didn't know went there. Well, the one day while we're there, we meet this group of boys. And by the way, my friend is super pretty. Like, all the guys immediately gravitate towards her, and I'm kind of like the duff, aka designated ugly fat friend. Anyways, While she's over there talking to all the boys, I'm sitting down at one of the tables. And one of the boys from the group comes over to me and starts talking to me. And he was being super sweet. And then he's like, oh, I don't know why all of them are over there talking to her. Like, she's not even that pretty. He was like, to be honest, you're way better looking than her. Now listen, I know I might seem like a bad friend for this, but I never had that male validation before. So that kind of made me feel good. Well, fast forward, his best friend and my best friend start dating, like for part 2. Part 2 about how this guy used me to get with my best friend. Like I said, they started dating. The boy that I was talking to at the pool, we're gonna call him Luke. Well, Luke's best friend was dating my best friend. Fast forward 2 months, Luke's saying how he wants to date me and stuff like that, but it's not the right time. And every time that I would ask Luke to hang out, he would only hang out if my best friend was there. Red motherfucking flag alert, bitch. Anyways, I didn't see that red flag. So Luke and his best friend go to this party. And apparently I was told that there was this girl there that was really hot. And Luke was saying to his best friend, oh, you should hook up with her. She's totally into you. Your girlfriend won't find out because she doesn't even know any of the people at this party. So he hooks up with the girl there. Then Luke calls me and says, OMG, like he cheated on your best friend. So I immediately call my best friend to tell her. And because she likes to talk to Luke about all her problems, she calls him. So he goes over there to comfort her. I didn't hear anything from them till a week after. My best friend posted him on her story and goes, my new boo.
A story time about the worst date in my entire life. And ladies, this is why you should really know a guy before meeting up with him. By the way, we're calling him Slim Jim. So I met Slim Jim over Instagram. He was cute and he lived in my area. He DM'd me about a date. So a couple weeks later, we went out to dinner. During our date, he seemed pretty cool, but he kept looking down at his phone. I didn't want to get upset because he wasn't my boyfriend. When we ordered, the guy literally gets $200 worth of food. And me, on the other hand, I got a $20 solid. But all throughout the date, he kept looking around and I was so confused. And he constantly said that he needed to go to the bathroom. He told me that he took medicine that made him go to the bathroom a lot. The last time he went to the bathroom, he was going for like 30 minutes. And at that point, I was irritated and ready to go until a random girl walks up to me asking if I knew Slim Jim was here. I told her we were on a date and she basically told me that she was his girlfriend and baby mama. If you want to know what happened after that, let me know down below in the comments. This is part 2 of the worst date in my life. And the reason why, ladies, you need to really know a guy before meeting up with him. So, like I said before, he left me at a table for like 30 minutes. And I got upset because I thought he was trying to ditch me to pay the bill. Well, then a couple minutes later, a girl comes up to me asking if I was on a date with Slim Jim. I told her yes, and she basically explained that she was his girlfriend and baby mom. Well, at this point, she was his ex-girlfriend. She starts telling me the craziest things about him, that he robs people and that he will soon be doing time for being a part of a murder investigation, and that I should stay away from him because he had HIV and that he gave it to her. I had asked her, how did you find him? And she tells me that he takes all his new girls here. Then she leaves out the restaurant. 5 minutes later, Slim Jim comes back and tells me he thinks he dropped his wallet. In my head, I'm assuming that he's trying to make me pay for the $200 dinner. So I tell him that I have to go to the bathroom. I'm running out of time. Story time about the psycho neighbor that stalked me. So when I graduated college, I moved into a new apartment. When I first got there, I was moving my things in and my neighbor introduced himself and helped me move a couple of things upstairs. After we had got done, he asked for my number, but I told him I wasn't really looking for a relationship. But he said, let's just swap numbers just in case, a fire happens. So I gave him my number and I really didn't think nothing of it. Maybe a week later, he starts knocking on my door and giving me gifts just about every day, like teddy bears and flowers. Then maybe about 2 weeks later, I told him to stop because I wasn't really interested in him. So the next day, I wake up to make coffee and take out trash. When I pass my living room, the teddy bear gift that my neighbor gave me makes a click noise. When I quickly rip the teddy bear open, it's a camera inside. Like for part 2 about the psycho neighbor that stalked me. So, like I said earlier, the teddy bear gift that my neighbor had gave me makes a clicking noise. When I quickly rip the teddy bear open, it's a camera inside. And I go into a panic mode. Out of nowhere, there's a knock on my door, and it's my neighbor. He says, "Good morning, it's me again. You left your trash too close to the curb, so I moved it for you." I realized that my door was still open, so I try to run over and lock the door, but he just opens it. I yell at him, telling him to get out. He closes the door behind him and says, "That's no way to talk to a neighbor." I start backing up. He looks over and sees that I ripped the teddy bear apart. I didn't know what else to do, so I just ran to my room. And he chases after me and pulls my hair. Like for part 3. Part 3 about the psycho neighbor that stalked me. So he comes in, I run into my room, and he chases after me. Before I could get up, he pulls onto my hair and starts dragging me towards the kitchen. I saw the coffee that I had made earlier, and I was able to pick it up and throw the hot coffee in his face. He starts screaming loud, and I took that chance to run into my room and lock the door. I immediately start calling the police, and from there, it sounded like he ran out of my apartment. When the cops came, they're doing an investigation, and all the gifts that he gave me all had cameras in them. And when I told them about my neighbor, they did some digging, and come to find out, that man wasn't even my neighbor. He didn't even live at the apartment complex.